I'll record this local. Hopefully this will help people who are just getting kind of going. And I know I did a lot of this when I first, I still do. Let me see. Anyway, Lorianne's here. Good morning, Lorianne. Arthur, come on, scroll. My little scroller, I got to get it to work right. It was scrolling before for me. It was doing fine. You know, it's always electronics. Sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. What are we doing here? It's handy when it works, not so much when it doesn't. My little trackball hand thing. See, I got a monitor right down here in front of me that I'm looking at, and now I'm scrolled up, and I can't scroll down. Strange enough, I pointed at the TV, but the computer's over there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and do it manually, because it will auto-scroll as they come in. Corey's here, and Tom Holt, and Corey, Rich Bolduc. Good morning, Rich. Mom's here. Good morning, Mom. You can find awesome roadside firewood. Absolutely. And we're going to make a oval natural edge bowl today. So that's our project, and that's this piece here. And we'll get to that. But first, I want to cover what you look for, what to leave on the curb. I mean, I got this cherry on Saturday, and I think it was cut down on Friday, something like that. So it's free wood, and I always say, people always ask me, what's the best wood? And I say free wood, as long as it's good wood. So this is a perfect scenario for that. I say, I got this wood on Saturday. And then, of course, on Sunday, I told Bridget I was going out in the van, and I was cruising all the neighborhood streets looking for any more. I got that bug again for that free green wood, because I haven't been cutting any free wood or turning any green wood here recently. So I grabbed a bunch of this stuff, and it's a perfect scenario. And I got a number of pieces here that I want to show you and explain why you want to leave some on the curb, even though I brought them home, and some that you want to grab, all right, and how to work with it. So please, if you are just getting started in this and you happen to be here today, do not hesitate to ask me questions. If you're one of the shy ones who doesn't like to ask questions in the comment column that I'm watching out front, send me an email afterwards, send me a message. I'm here to help you. Let me get my watch off too, because this is going to be one of those days and I don't need to have that watch on. I'm assuming that the camera is clear, it looks clear, and that the sound is coming through. I did do a check this time after 2 weeks ago. Hey, and it was nice taking a little break, for the holiday there. Anyway, this is the piece we're going to turn, and I'm going to set it out of the way for a few minutes so I can go over some of this other stuff. So you pull up on the curb, you're driving down the road, and I'm so guilty of this, but I was driving across country from Colorado to Georgia, and I had a tandem axle trailer just completely full of aspen, probably overloaded. And I was in a McDonald's in, I think it's Corinth, Mississippi or something like that, and there lays this odd-looking piece of lumber on the side of the road in the ditch. I had to go strap that piece of wood on the trailer. Did I ever turn? I don't know. It's just something that gets in us. So when you grab a piece of wood, you see all this wood in the pile, a couple of things to think of. Whoever cut it up wasn't thinking of you. All right, they weren't thinking about the wood turner guy who might come by and pick it up. They were thinking about how heavy is it for me to get to the corner, out to the curb. We're assuming, like I say, this is a homeowner in this case. Tree surgeons, they're going to do maybe a little bit different. They just want it in the smallest pieces that they can move. And this green wood is heavy. There's no doubt about it. And that is kind of to your disadvantage. So being quick on the draw, if you find wood that's just hit the ground, if you see them cutting it and you happen to be driving along, you may want to stop and say, hey, do you mind if I take some of these pieces and take them home? Because then you've got it at its freshest point. As soon as we cut this stuff, it starts to dry out on the ends. It starts to split and check and crack. And I've got a sample. I'm looking for the best sample here of that. And this tree was sick as well. And let me see which splits are going to look the best or worst in that case. And I've got a number of these pieces on the table. And, you know, my perspective sometimes is a little warped. I admit that openly about what's good and what's bad. I'm just trying to find the ones. Well, let me try and use this one and see if this will show up in the camera very well. And I'm going to zoom this guy down in here and adjust it around. Then I'll switch the camera over for you. I want to show you a couple things. And I'm going to get right in tight on this, and I hope it'll stay focused. Okay, so this is the end of this big piece right here, and I've got it zoomed in pretty tight. Remind you, this wood was probably cut on Friday. And what I want you to take note of is these cracks. See how quickly these cracks formed? This is just a couple of days, all right? It doesn't take long. The wood is green. Even though it's super humid in here in Georgia, that doesn't really matter. It starts to dry out, and it starts to dry out unevenly. And this is the notorious pith. Oh, you can't quite see that. Hang on a sec. See if I can move this over a little bit. Trying not to move the camera so much. So here's the pith of the tree, right here, right in the very center. And you can kind of see the circle of it, and you'll see cracks radiating out of the pith area. All right. Typically, we do not want to keep the pith in any of our work anyway. That's just kind of a general rule. And I got to move one chunk of wood here so that I can see the comment column. It was getting in my way, so I'm going to put it over here. There we go. Generally, we want to cut right through this area when we cut this on a bandsaw or a chop saw. And that's another thing about today's presentation, the description. So we're assuming you have the basics today. I am. You just got a lathe, or you've had it for a little while. You've got a lathe, you've got a faceplate, you've got a chuck. You don't have a bandsaw. You may or may not have a chainsaw. It would be good to get a chainsaw. That might be like one of the first things I got after I got a lathe, especially if you're into getting found wood instead of going down to the store and buying it. But so back into here, when we cut this, you would want to cut this pith area out. And we'll talk about that here a little bit. But first, I'm still showing, I want to show you the cracks. And right next to the cracks, I want to show you this area. Pay particular attention to this. This is wood. So this tree was sick and old, and it started to rot. It's called spalting. It's called white wood rot. And as you can see, there's no integrity to this part of this piece of wood. All right? And it is right next to very, very hard wood. So that's going to give you trouble if you when you go to try and turn it, because it's really soft. All right? So this piece of wood would be one that you would be questionable about. Do I want to take this? And I'm going to pull this over here. And you can see this whole bottom section, and I'm zoomed in pretty tight. This section all has this rod in it, okay? But if I slide the piece over, and I'll zoom out just a little bit, now that you've seen the cracks. Nope, going the wrong way. I'll just go out there where we can see the whole thing. So here's the pith we talked about. This upper half appears to be clear and clean and with no decay like we have on the bottom. So theoretically, half of this log is reasonable to assume to work with. Avoid this type of wood if you don't want to have difficulties, because you're going to turning between two different densities. This is going to be really soft. It's going to be really hard. It's going to give you a nightmare. It's going to tear out. It's going to do all kinds of crazy things. Now we could talk about stabilizing, and you could stabilize this wood. I've done other demonstrations classes here on Monday Methods on stabilizing, something you can think about. It's probably beautiful wood with the colorations and maybe the patterns that might be in it, but that's a whole nother world. So I would just discard this half of this log for our purposes today. But, so we decided half this log is good looking here, right? But now we come over here and we see, well, by golly, there's a cut off limb. There we go. Cut off limb here that's grown a knot around it, right? Now, that's going to make for some issues. Now, if you're like me and you like crazy looking wood and you don't mind dealing with these, then it's fine. I would leave this right in there and I would let that crazy grain that grew around that be part of my piece. You may want to go ahead and skip that and just cut off that section and just discard. You would discard, if this log was longer, you would just go ahead and discard this whole section, right? That might go into the firewood pile. And then if let's say this was longer, then you would use the wood that we have that's worth working with. So look for things like that. Look for the big knots. Now, there also are wonderful opportunities if your skill is there with your tools and your idea to make it into a piece of art. Another thing that's really key, if you haven't noticed yet, and nobody's asked me about this, I'm a little surprised. See all this lichen growing on here? This tells me, and if it had mushrooms on it, I'd really know. That tells me that this piece of wood, is starting to get the disease and the rot in it. You can see here, these were actually stuck together. There was two pieces that were just stuck where the crotch was. And that wood, that's the bottom side that's, kind of rough. So, and this was out in the street or on, right on side street, got good sun. Hey, Dad finally made it. Good morning, Dad. So when you have lichens and whatnot growing, that means there's extra moisture and fungus and things of that nature growing in the wood, and that is what's going to lead you to believe that this potential soft, degraded, rotten wood is there, okay? So that's something to keep in mind. So this particular piece, I would take the chainsaw and I would cut it in half, say right like this. I know I'm kind of still zoomed out. I would cut this guy right in half with a chainsaw up on a bucking stand and make a little blank out of that. Being that this is a small tree, let's go back up here. Being this is a small tree, you're not going to get big pieces out of it. But when you're first starting and you're looking for free wood because you don't want to go down to a Woodcraft or Rockler and give them $60 for a blank of wood so you can learn how to turn, this is a good way to start. Now, there's a couple other things to keep in mind. Yard trees, which is what we're picking up here. This you didn't find this out on the side of the road in the National Forest where it fell over across the road and they cut it out of the way because of the storm. This is in a yard where, depending on where it was in the yard, it might have had a swing tied to it. It might have had a birdhouse screw holder put in it. It could have metal. It could have fence. So if you're going to do this, pick up this kind of wood, visually look for rust stains. Look for anything in it. Look for strange growths on the outside of the wood itself. Better yet, get a metal detector and sweep it. And if it goes off, you know that you've got something in there that's metal, and that's going to dull your tools or possibly even damage your tools, possibly hurt you if you break a tool, if you hit a big old piece of steel in there or a big nail. So be aware of those kind of things. It may not always be the cleanest wood, and it might be perfectly fine. Just know that comes with the territory. When you get it for free on the side of the road, you still got to put in a little bit of effort for what you got for free, okay? So that's this particular piece that we have here. Not completely unsalvageable, but not the greatest piece. I threw this in the van just to use it as an example. And the other thing I want to say about a piece this size. So this piece is 10 inches long. Had it laid out there much longer, and with the cracks that are in the end, I'm going to cut 2 inches off of both ends of this to make sure I get rid of these cracks that have already started. Because one of the biggest reasons our wood cracks, our pieces crack, is if we're turning this green wood, and we go through the proper drying process, whichever one of the methods you choose, and it cracked is because it was already cracked and you couldn't see those cracks. So a piece of wood that's only 10 inches long, you're going to end up with maybe 6 inches of wood and not a whole lot. So it may not be worth dragging home, okay? It all depends on how desperate you want that piece of wood. So I'm going to set this guy off over here somewhere out of my way. God knows where that'll be. I'll put it under the lathe and hopefully I don't trip over it. All right, the next type. And let me get this guy off of here. So here we have this beauty. This guy was in the pile. Hope you can see that all right. It's got a limb coming out here. It's got a limb coming out here. It's got a knot hole in it right there. Limb coming here, limb coming here, limb here, limb here. Unless you're bold and daring and really want to experiment with different grains, like there's a crotch pattern right here. It would be small, but right in this crotch, you could make a small crotch grain kind of piece. Okay. A lot of work in this piece of wood with all these limbs and appendages, grain going every different direction. It's going to be a hard piece of wood to work with. There's also some reward to it because of that. And everything has this reward for the effort. Now also, let's see if I can show you here. You can see that this piece, again, another strike against it. We move this over here. And these are the things that you look at when you're sitting there on the curb. Let me get this. I don't want to take the tailstock all the way off, but I do want to get the live center out for a second. So I have just a little bit more room. I may have to take the tailstock off. Okay. Instead of fighting it, it's going to fight me. Oh, I see. What? Never mind, Brad. I had my air hose in the way. All right. Just like the other piece that I had up here, if you'll look, even at this limb wood, all this outer portion is decayed wood. All right. Unless you want to stabilize this piece to utilize this, that's all you've got is right there. All right. Now this would be beautiful wood, but it would need to be stabilized to be worth turning. That's the first place he goes for is the limbs. And Rich is right. There is a lot of character in the limb wood of a tree. Okay. But there is also some work, and I'm sure Rich will be the first to tell you that sometimes it's a lot more work than just getting a nice clean piece of wood. Everything that has value requires effort. But looking at this, you can see that wood is not very sound. You can see that this limb was cut off a while ago because it's already turned brown and all that. Now, I may still want to take this top piece of this just because I'm like Rich. And I got this crazy hole right here in the top of this thing. And I got a limb coming out of there that's junky. That might be something cool to turn right there, okay? But I can't say that I would necessarily recommend it if you're just getting started, all right? So this chunk of wood, typically just leave this one in the pile and let the guys come pick it up on Monday morning with the big truck who are going to throw it all away. But be aware that if you want that crazy grain, you could work with it. Again, a lot of extra effort, okay? So this one's too big. I'm going to put it back over here because it's way big. And one other thing I need to check real quick is turn off the noise on my phone. And I'm afraid somebody's asking. I'm not going to take the time. Maybe Larry Jordan will. I said he looks like he's looking on YouTube for us this morning, and he's not finding us. Okay, another one that I had that was in the pile out there. Now, this one for what is this? Probably 8-inch diameter piece, about 2.5 feet long. This is a prime piece, believe it or not. You see this piece, you go, okay, I want this piece. Whether or not you want the crotch grain to deal with or not, this piece is long enough in its length that you could cut it off right here below the crotch, and you now could cut off the 2 inches or so at the bottom, and you could get a couple of small bowl blanks out of this. So being 8 inches, and let's say you could probably get 6 small bowl blanks out of this section of wood, because it's long enough. It's pretty round. It's not too crazy. You know, it has checked on this end a little bit, and there is some old bad wood down here, but not bad. So when the piece is longer like this, you're much more apt to get workable wood. When they're super short, like this one, right? And this one I haven't cut either. If they're that short, either get on them right away or just leave them for the truck. So when you've got a piece, and now if you get pieces that are 5 feet, 10 feet long, whatever you can haul, hey, it's your day. You really got lucky, okay? So the short version of that is the longer the piece is, the more wood you have to work with before it starts to split, check, degrade, etc. And that makes it a wonderful thing. This piece here, this is kind of a mess. You can see here, and I'll go to the overhead. This was up against another piece, kind of in a faux crotch, if you will. So this is pretty ugly unless you're a stabilizer. This is all soft and rotten. The bugs are in here. But half of it is still good, okay, and except for this area here. So this piece, and it's got chainsaw junk on it. Excuse my cough. Not a whole lot to work with here, but you could cut this down again and probably get yourself one small bowl out of this, a nice little cherry bowl, if you're so inclined. Now having a bandsaw, let me get back up here. Having a bandsaw for this kind of work is much easier and safer than trying to cut it with a chainsaw. Trying to cut small pieces, this is the way this came right off the side of the road. Trying to cut this up with a chainsaw, like I cut that piece this morning, because my bandsaw here, classic scenario, 1/2 inch too short of clearance. The one up north at the shop, plenty of clearance. The one I have here doesn't have a tall enough throat. I was 1/2 inch short of being able to put that on the bandsaw. Trying to cut small pieces like this that are already this small with the chainsaw can be difficult, can be dangerous. They can grab, they can kick, they can hit you. You get cut with your chainsaw. So a bandsaw is a great choice. Now, again, you may not have the bandsaw, which goes into this piece that we're going to turn today. And over time, you can invest in these different tools and machines, and you'll find out that whatever you paid for that lathe, that was the inexpensive part of the hobby. But it is a wonderful hobby, and just keep on slowly building your way up. And you don't need a lot of fancy stuff to get started. But you do want to work with something that's halfway decent, and do it safely so that you don't get frustrated. All right? So this piece probably would have left on the side of the road, other than the fact that I wanted to use it as an example of probably what to leave behind. That said, if you wanted to cut some blanks out of here, let's say you wanted some cherry pen blanks, well then this is a perfect part. Take and run it through the bandsaw, cut these up square, seal them up, let them dry, you'd be good to go. All right? It doesn't look bad other than these outer areas. So it just depends on how much you want to get the free wood and how much time, time versus money and all that to get going with it. So we'll set that one over there. Now I've got one more piece sitting here that I want to bring over. Now I'm kind of goofy, which I admit. And this looks like a total piece of trash, right? It's just a little sliver, but it's also where crotch began. Here's the center of one going, here's the center of another, here's this bark open inclusion. So it could be a nightmare, and it could also be a really cool piece of wood, all right? So I took this piece, and I say I'll get around to turning it. I don't know if I will or not. I would turn this flat, smooth this out, leave it maybe in its natural profile here, put a little profile to it. Let me jump back up here. And have a pretty interesting looking piece, just as an art piece, as a wall hanging, something like that. The grain in it is fantastic. Right, and I know you can't really see it even if I go back to this overhead here. You can't quite see in here, but it's got really wavy, curly grain, beautiful. There's some rot right in here, so you would have to do some stabilizing with it. But again, you could work with this piece if you are so inclined. It's not going to be a big piece, but it's going to be pretty. All right? So those are some of the things to think about when you're picking up your free roadside wood. All right? Let me get some of this stuff out, organized up here a little bit, made it all dirty. So I could have my piece. Here's my piece that we're going to turn today. And it's not perfect. Had my bandsaw been just a half an inch higher, taller throat, I would have cut this piece round on the bandsaw. Go to overhead here. I would have gone ahead and cut this round on the bandsaw and had a round blank. But it wouldn't, just by a tick, it wouldn't clear. So I said, well, I haven't made, and I wanted to make a natural edge bowl anyway. I said, well, I haven't made a natural edge oval, not round, bowl in a long time. So here's the perfect candidate. I didn't want to try and chop this with my chainsaw and chop the corners off, just too small, too dangerous. Didn't want to go there. So it's going to take a little more work to get us into a bowl, but it will be worth the effort, I do believe. Now, when I look at the piece of wood, let me go to the overhead here. Again, if you guys got questions, you holler at me. You can see some bad wood. This wood is bad over here. A little bit of that going on there. Here's the pith right in here. And what I'm going to do is we're going to mount a faceplate back here on the back side, and we're going to double turn this because I'm going to go with the assumption that you don't have a lot of equipment yet. You don't have a variety of spur drives and long step drives, large diameter, big tooth. You have the basic things that maybe came with your lathe. So, but you got a faceplate. Almost every lathe, I'm pretty sure, comes with a faceplate. And so that's how we're going to work this. And we're going to take an extra step because this piece is not perfectly round, right? And it's not even perfectly flat on the bottom. It's pretty flat. So we're going to put a faceplate on the bottom so that we can then mount a faceplate on the top because we want a great grip when we have this piece between centers. We're going to faceplate it here first to make ourselves a little hole because what we could do, but we're not going to because I don't want to show you something if you might not have it. I want to show you how to work with the basics that you might have in-house. A step drive like this. Let me go overhead. This is a Sorby step drive, and it has teeth all the way around. A spring-loaded prong in the middle. Okay, these work great. They go right into the wood. The teeth grab, and you get a pretty good hold. If you don't, these are $50, $60, so you may not have one of these yet. Now I could do that, and I could put this piece up between centers, and I'll just kind of hold it up. This goes, by the way, in your chuck. Let me open up my chuck here, and we go to in camera. Yeah, there we go. So this goes in your chuck, just to hold it. Your piece goes up. Your tailstock comes up, piece will spin. We could turn our opening for our faceplate right down here, all right? But if you don't have it, you can't do that. Also, sometimes, and especially, see, I've got this soft wood here. Some of this wood is not great, and the center is okay. It might dig a hole. It might try and drill a hole in there. So that's why we're going with a faceplate on this today. So that's how we're going to mount this up. We're going to take that away. These are handy, super handy. Spiracraft carries these. These are from Sorby. We have them in 1/2 inch, 3/4, 1 inch, I believe, 1.5 inch. My favorite 2-inch one is broken. I can't get that one anymore. So I'm going to mount a faceplate on here. Now, to be safe, I'm willing to give up a little bit of wood, knowing that I have some soft wood here. So I'm going to go ahead and use 1.5 inch screws. Now, when I use an 1.5 inch screw, I get about an inch and a quarter's worth of actual screws sticking out. Show you here. So this is how much I'm going to penetrate wood once I've gone through the faceplate. All right. So I will give up a little bit of wood to start with. Now, I'm not going to get all crazy about how I centered this up. I'm just going to kind of put this up on here. Like I said before, I started to say, the biggest reason I want this mounted safely on a faceplate is that because we have to turn away these corners, this is going to be fairly violent. It's going to be a lot of forces, and I don't think that using my step drive would have enough hold to keep it from spinning because I didn't cut this round. Because it's an oval piece, that throws a kind of a wrinkle into the equation, okay? So back to the overhead here, and we will get the screws in this guy. Actually, I'll do it from the side, I think. Let me take a quick sip here. I hope the folks over at in YouTube land have figured out to come over here to Facebook. We'll do this from the side. So it is an extra step because we're going to do this twice. And I get it, but I know it's safe. And it's not going to get away from me. It's not going to hurt me. It is going to be clunky at first. Because when we turn our opening for our second faceplate, and that's why I have two faceplates out here that are the same size. Where am I at? I'm over here. So this one I'll use to test fit to go into the hole that we're going to make. So it is handy to have two. You don't have to. You could use your calipers. You could use your inside-outside calipers here to measure. Those are simple to get, not expensive. Show you that from the overhead. As you can see, the screw holes in your faceplate are countersunk. These are number 10 screws. Number 10 with, it looks like a Phillips, but it's actually also a square drive. I don't know if you can see that drive right there. It is square, and there's a squareness to the screw hole. Don't use just a standard Phillips, and these are 10s instead of 8s. They fit the recesses on the lathe on the faceplate much better. Okay, so we don't need this chuck right now. We'll take that guy back off of there. Oops. There we go. Just snug that up because it's going to get tighter. All right. Now, I do still want my tailstock in place, just because. All I really want to do though is I'm just going to make this this hole. I can do both. I can start to shape this also as we go. Eventually, though, we're going to want to shape it from the bottom to get our best cuts. This is green. And today, I'm going to turn this piece thin, so it'll only get turned once. Turning green wood, and because I'm surprised nobody's had the green wood question. Turning the green wood, let me think about this for a second. I'm changing thoughts here real quick. I'm going to leave this out because of the high ends here. Turning green wood, you want to... If you want it perfectly round, you're going to turn it, leave it oversized. 10% of the diameter is the rule of thumb for your wall thickness. Let it dry, come back and return it. If you're going to turn it thin, you don't have to do that. You can turn it thin. This piece is going to be oval. It's going to warp. It's not going to matter. It'll just add to the look and the twist and the value of the piece. So that's all good. Okay. So since I decided to take leave the tailstock on. I'm leave that. Make sure that's a little bit more snug. And look at my speed. And you can see it bounces around. Now let me go to, since I know where we're at here now, I'm going to get that drill out of my way. I'm going to adjust this end camera for the best look. And that should do the trick. Okay, back on. And I'll show you, so here's what we have coming from the end. So you can see right in here, our very center, this is where we're going to go ahead and make our recess to put our faceplate in. Our faceplate's going to go right into here, all right? So we won't be taking a lot of wood off of there. Once we have the faceplate hole cut, I could bring up the tailstock and turn it some of the corners away, but I might as well just go ahead and remount it, turn it around, and do that. And I was on the wrong camera. Like I said, I might as well just go ahead and turn it all the way around to where I want it, where I can get to the bottom end and have her good to go. So, off we go. Faceplate, face shield. This is a barky piece. Okay, sure it's clean. Now I'm going to set my, I have both inside and outside calipers here today. All right. I'm going to set my calipers, my inside calipers, for the diameter of this faceplate, which is 3 inches. Or half, excuse me. And these are the ones I need to clean the threads out on. So this way I can measure my hole, measure my recess that I'm going to put my faceplate in. This is going to go into the wood that's going to go away anyway. So we're not worried about that, and we're not worried about the screw holes there. Okay. So there we have our match. And I'm going to fix this camera while I'm standing here. Get it back out where it belongs. Okay. So you can see how I've matched up my calipers to my faceplate. They stick out just a little bit beyond. Okay. All right. Good deal. It really isn't too hot. I've got the breeze going from the fan. Hope that's not anybody. Let's go to the end camera. Let me know if it goes out of focus. I had the focus set on at manual. So, and I'll watch the monitors as well and see what happens. Now to start this, I'm just going to use, I could use any of the tools. I'm going to use my little Easy Wood Tools #1 hollerer. It's going to let me get in here nice and easy. Make a nice light cut. I'll use a variety of tools on this today, on everything. So looking at the center, I can see that I need to raise it up still. I haven't made one in a long time. I'm excited. And it's not level. I like that. One end's higher than the other. That'll be cool. So I still need to go up a little bit more, especially with a piece like this. Always turn your lathe off before you move your tool rest, because if your fingers or your hand gets hit right here, it's going to hurt really bad. Trust me, I've been there. Just a fuzz more, ever so close. And even just now, that's going by and banging my knuckles right in here. Okay, here we go. We're going to make ourselves a nice little recess. We're going to cut all the way through the bark. And we're going to get down to nice solid wood. Take my inside calipers. I can take a quick check here. I'm not quite there yet. I'm close. Okay. And I also want to make sure I get all the way through the bark. Now you'll notice I'm not turning this very fast. I'm turning it at 497 RPMs. Not real fast. No need to get crazy right now. And you can take some of this excess. This is all going to get turned away. So if you want to take some of the extra away from here, you can. Hopefully it won't be any kind of a detriment later. So let's check our inner recess here. Okay, we're looking pretty good. Now what I want to do is flatten this up and square it up. So I'm going to take a radius or a square easy wood tool. Again, a carbide cutter. Just because it's square, it works easy. I can do this with a bowl gouge. This is just the easier way. I cut a square corner. Come right across there, take another look. Okay, now we should be able to take our faceplate, drop her in here. Okay, if I really wanted to get exact, I could make a perfect recess to drop it into. Let's have a little fun just for the yucks. Just to help center it up. That's close. I went a little far again, but that's okay. That'll do the trick for us. Okay, so that's all we needed to do there. Now we have our mounting point up here. We're through all the bark. We're down to we got good solid wood. This is going to be the inside of our natural bowl. All right. One end might be a little bit longer than the other. I may not have, it's just the way it's looking. That's okay. I'm not worried about that. This is going to be one of those free forms. So I'm kind of giving you a 2-for-1 here today in that real simple basic tools we're working with a slightly more challenging project because we have all kinds of different folks here at different levels. Good morning, Dick Gerard. How you doing, sir? Good to see you again. Dick, we're having fun with green wood, natural edge, roadside, found, curb wood. It doesn't get any better than that, does it? When you get you some free wood, get to make something fun out of it. All right, come on out of there. Yes, it's fall in South Georgia, so it was only 75 this morning. And it will be 89 today. I was looking at the weather at our other place in Colorado, where the low today is 35 and the high is 68, and there's snow on the mountains. That sounds just about perfect. There wasn't a cloud in the sky. Humidity is probably about 10%, maybe. I used to make a lot of these oval bowls when I was, selling in the art and craft show circuit, if you will. People were always amazed, but it's not round. How did you make it not round? And if you've wanted to do one and you haven't done one before of this nature, it's up here. It's psychological. You think of it as round, all right? And as I go through the process on this today, I'll talk about that more. Think of it as being round even though it's not. Well, Dick, you just keep right on fighting there, buddy. You keep on hanging in there. So I'll set 2 screws to get this started. And when I'm in here, I'll show you from the overhead. Oh, my hand will get in the way a little bit now and then. And I do need to clutch this drill. I was building a crate. I shipped a lathe out recently, and I was building a shipping crate. So I need to put my drill back on clutch so that I don't strip out the screws. You hear that? The clutching. Might want a little tighter on that. Okay, so we're looking at what, 11 o'clock? Well, good. We'll bust this guy out. So I hope that everybody understood, you know, picking and choosing from the wood that you find on the curb. When you're out there and you're finding that free wood, don't just throw it all in the truck, unless you feel like, you know, you're running from the dog or something like that and sorting it later. If you can, take the time, sort through what you think is going to be good for you. Because there's no need in bringing home wood that you're never going to get to. Ask me how I know. Ask my dad. I have brought home over the years, and especially early on, when the first few years I was turning, there wasn't a piece of wood I would turn down. If I saw it, if somebody was giving it to me, it came home. And ended up with way more wood hanging around that I never got to before it went bad and cracked. Okay, so here's one issue I'm going to have today because of this piece, and I was kind of worried about that, is the nature of this lathe. The fan cover is hitting, and I'll show you here. Fan cover is hitting right here. It's just because of the design of this particular lathe. And hopefully it won't be an issue. What I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to pop this fan cover off. It's just a cover. Usually this works. All I have to do, of course, is find a screwdriver. Sometimes easier said than done in my world. You would think I would have one just right there, but I don't always, because things move around from place to place. I always have my ice pick, almost always, but I don't always have the screwdriver that I need. So let me check over here real quick. I may have to, let's see if this one, that one won't do it. It's just my luck. One thing I didn't think of or didn't count on, I thought of it, but I didn't think that it was going to happen. Okay. So unfortunately, I'm going to run and grab a screwdriver, but I won't be far, and I'll be in touch. You haven't lost me. I'm not going away. Not going anywhere. Just going over next door into the workshop, the illustrious workshop. To come up with a little screwdriver tip. All right. It's handy to have two buildings right next to each other. And we're on the end camera. So you see I'm taking this one screw out here. We'll put it over here in a safe land by the computer, because otherwise I'll lose it for sure. I have taken this cover off many a time. And usually it's enough to do the trick. And I have to go around, see if I can get to this other one from the other side. Real quick like. Now if you have a lathe, obviously that the motor is off the end, you don't ever run into this particular issue. And of course my luck, there we go. I'm going to say one screw would be tight. hopefully will clear. Otherwise, I'll have to regroup it just a little bit. It's going to be close. It's going to be close, and it's not going to work. Not going to work with that. I do not have an extension that would be straight to straight for this. Oh, that's no fun. Okay. So, because of this issue that where I'm hitting here, and I don't want to turn, see, here's the thing, I don't want to turn this away. I really want to keep that, right? The only other thing I can do, I can take the fan off of there. But I really shouldn't do that. Although it's not doing anything when I'm turning without the cover on it because it's not blowing air over it much. So that's kind of a bother. All right, so we're going to have to go back at it the other way. And I'll remount it from the bottom for the whole thing. Doesn't make me happy. And I don't have a faceplate with a longer neck on it. I'm trying to think of any other quick remedies here. And I don't have one. And that is Phillips. I am tempted to take that fan off for a few minutes. But no, I got a lot of turning to do. So, my apologies on this one. Sometimes these things jump up and bite you. You get that. So we have to go about it a little bit different. But it's not the end of the world. And that's kind of the beauty. I don't want to cut off that corner, Lorianne. I want to keep that as part of the piece. If I could cut it off easily, and that would take care of the issue, but that's one of the parts that I want to leave on here. So that's the artist in me saying, don't take off that corner, find another way around it to deal with the situation. Okay. I do have another idea here. I do have another idea, though, that might just work. So as you think, if we think about things for a minute, okay, this could work. Could work. This could work. If I can find my drill bit, a drill bit. If I mount a worm screw in here, I can come in here with a worm screw, my faceplate. Let me go here on the end. I'm going to mount a worm screw right here and run it in this. Use that as my support for my faceplate, and I should be good. Yeah, Rich, use these Nova with the motor on the head. Yeah, if my DVR was here, it wouldn't be an issue. And Mary Alice says, mount it between centers and twist a little. That would work too. Mary Alice, did you enjoy Nick's interview yesterday? I thought it was pretty cool. Nick Agar was on Meet the Woodturner yesterday. For those of you who might not have caught it, there was a couple of hundred people in there. He gave a great interview on his start in woodturning, his career, how his career started and all. It was very interesting. I enjoyed it very much. Okay. So if I'm lucky and I hit this in the right spot, right in the center there, That should do the trick. And I'm going to put the cover back on this real quick while I'm at it. We are on the end, so I'll go to the overhead. I'm going to throw the cover back on here just so I don't throw things into the blades. Yeah, I told Mary Alice, I told Pat that when I sent the email to get the access, I said I see him, Nick, pretty frequently. He's only 30 minutes away from me over in Brooklet, but we would never have a conversation really like that, leaning on the side of the truck. So I thought it would be fun to come and hear his story as told, in a public venue. I can't repeat the things that we talk about leaning against the truck. Not that it's anything bad, don't get me wrong. All right, that'll work for now. Okay, back to my plan. Plan B. Hopefully this will thread. I grabbed the first drill bit that I saw there. And the other one might be too small. You know what happens when you get in a hurry. Let's see what happens here. If this will thread and hold. This is a double-ended, on the Easy Chuck you get a double-ended worm screw. And I'm thinking that one might be, let's see if it'll grab tight in there. So you can see how the jaws are going down inside. Okay. Now I'm going to screw this down snug. There we go. Okay, so I may get a little spinning. We'll see what happens here. Hopefully not. Tailstock up. Okay, so this is going to be, still got that cracking voice. This will be kind of the messy part, where I'm getting the corners off and shaping the bottom. So to give you an idea, back to the overhead, I'm going to curve this piece up to these two high points, the ones like that cause the problem. So it's going to be like a banana. All right, going to be one of those banana boat bowls. All right. So that means we got some junk to get rid of. The first thing I need to do is find a speed that will turn this safely and in balance. And I'm going to double check my chuck is on tight because I was talking while I was doing a lot of stuff. Make sure that's on there tight. Like I say, hopefully the resistance I have here doesn't override the resistance, and I've almost got a recess in there where I could expand those jaws out, but that would let go of the worm screw. So hopefully the resistance of the tool does not override the grip that we have. And so when you see it from the overhead there, it looks like one kind of crazy thing. And when you see it from the end here, it looks like another crazy mass of stuff. All right? Now there's actually a round bowl in there too if you wanted it. If you look here, you can see what would be a round bowl if you were so inclined to turn all that away, but that's not what we want to do. Okay? So that's about 650 RPM right now. And that's where I'm going to start, I believe. Maybe a little more. That's about 700. That smoothed out a little bit. I've got a little bit of vibration in there. But that's okay. So again, choice of tool could be my bowl gouge. Because I want a small, light cut, I'm going still to stay with the #1 carbide hollower and start to take these corners off. Now I'll try and do this kind of unfun part as quickly as I can and get down to the fun stuff. Some of this wood is just going to tear away. It's really soft. The bark is going to fly, things like that. That's a given. Check my tool for being centered. Double check everything is tightened down. Double check that I'm tight there. Everything's tight everywhere. Okay. All right. I think the overhead is probably going to be, for the moment, the better view for you. So I will go there, and I'm going to stand, as I always like to show you, real quick. I'm going to stand over here. I'm nowhere in front of this thing. I'm over here working. Bark is going to fly off. It's going to go this way, right? Hopefully it doesn't break the window. I'm going to stay over here out of the way with my face mask on. And I'll start right out here on this corner. I just want to double check that cutter's sitting in there right. And it's always good when if you see something. So I just looked at this cutter. We are in the overhead. I just looked at the cutter here and I see that it's actually, I didn't set it on there flat, it doesn't look like. I've only done it like 10,000 times to put one of these cutters on. You would think I would be able to handle that, but I guess some days are like that. So this cutter was not sitting flat down in the tool bed. Either that or I broke it. That's possible too. There may be some buildup here. If you don't get them in there just right, they can sit crooked, and you won't know it, and you'll have all kinds of trouble, and you'll wonder, why is my tool not working right? And you think, well, and it was an interesting conversation that came up with Nick yesterday about carbide and conventional tools. I also, one time you think, well, a bowl gouge, you'd never have a problem with a bowl gouge. I actually had a bowl gouge one time that the flute was not ground down the center of the steel. It was kind of interesting. It always had one side that was higher than the other. I need my ice pick here real quick. So it always pays to make sure your tools are right. And if you see something and you think maybe it might be something's askew, by golly, don't keep on going. Stop and take a look. You know, there's always tomorrow, right? You know, come back to the shop the next day. Okay. Because I would have started in with that, and that would have been crooked, and it would have actually been loose, and I'd have had all kinds of troubles. Okay, back to our overhead. And off we go. Now, a lot of people might want to wear a glove here. I'm just holding my hand down below. Because the bark flying off can hurt. Now you can see that quickly I've already moved 2 inches away from the tool rest. So stop often and move the tool rest. And I'll give you a look at this from the end. You'll see how the pattern is starting to develop already. Now this wood, you know, this is all that nasty wood. Theoretically, we'll get that all turned away. Bark may not stay on here, but we'll still have a natural edge profile with one end higher than the other. And that's kind of what I'm about. On this one, yeah, the bark's not going to stay on, so that's life. All right. So I'll show you from this end. Same approach. This is where our tendon's going to be in here. somewhere in that area. Okay, so that got the sharp corner off. As you see in the overhead here, it starts to already curve in, right? So let's switch over. Speaking of the bowl gouge, let's switch over to the bowl gouge. Okay. And so the trick here is to create an arc from where our tenon is going to be, or our base, up to our top corner, right? Now, because one end is higher than the other, one end will be thicker than the other as well, all right? So this is going to be a funny looking guy. It's going to be short with some tall ends on it. But funny looking is good, as far as I'm concerned. I have never had a problem with a funny looking piece. Somewhere I can put that out of the way. And we are in the overhead camera. So let me go to the end camera for you. Move things around. Okay. Just using a little bit of the wing of the tool and the tip. Now we're cutting wood and air and wood and air. And you're going to want to stop often and watch your progress as you come up. See, you've got there's the pith, and yeah, you know, it may give his piece trouble, but you want to watch your progress as you come up the wall of the piece, right? Now, this is going to have a pretty steep side to it, and there's a lot of ways that you can profile this. If I don't like the initial profile, if I think it's too steep from here to here, I could bring this in and flare it down. I could make it like an OG shape. You can do anything you want to. So that's the beauty of wood turning, is playing with the shapes, finding a shape that you like. And also, one more thing here. So I've got screw holes in here that are about 1.25 inches long. So I know that I can actually take off, let me get to the end. I need to take about 1/2 inch of wood off of here, off of this end, because of these screw holes. So let's just go ahead and do that, because I'm giving myself a false reading, if you will. Of where my bottom is, because I don't have a true bottom lined up. You see, now I know that my screw holes are going to be somewhere around there, all right? It's pretty wood. Now we're starting to look at the pretty grain in this. And what's going to happen, this was my thought originally. So here's the pith right here. By the time I make a tenon up here, I anticipate this pith virtually being turned out of the piece. That's how short I think it's going to actually get in time. This is a Carter & Son 5/8 bowl gouge. And so what I'm doing right now is I'm just making the initial basic shape. Then we're going to come back here and make the tenon for real. I'm going to turn my lathe off and move my tool rest. Now, if this piece ends up with this punky wood in it, and I really like it, I'll let it dry. I'll dry it, and then I will stabilize this bad boy to keep that color, these color variations in here. So I might just end up doing that. So you hear that tick. So you always want to turn this by hand. Do it on time, 11:20. Take some more of this corner off. Gonna get a little bumpier out here. One more pass up. Now I see that I'm getting close to the top, or closer. So here, let's see, you can see that this end is about an inch from the bark line, maybe an inch and a quarter. And this end is 3 inches away. So that's how much difference there is in the piece because of that one higher end. And that's where your carving or sanding may come into play. Okay, or you carve it, turn it until this is flush and this end just gets really short. All right. Okay, so I'm going to take my square style tool, start thinking about my tenon here a little bit before I go any further, because I can't really connect these dots until I know where I decided to put my tenon. All right, so I'm going to make my tenon down in here, and then I'll have what I have in mind. I love the color and the grain in this piece of wood. Sometimes, like I say, this free wood, some people, there's a famous saying that life's too short to turn crappy wood. Well, sometimes crappy wood is really pretty and can be really nice stuff to have around. So what I'm going to do is, where are we at here? We're on the end. I'm going to look for the end of the screw holes. Maybe not completely, but where it looks like they're petering out, so that I know that I have. I'm not going to have a screw hole in the bottom of my piece. So that's all waste wood right there. I still see the screw holes, but it looks like they're getting pretty small. So let me come along and we'll make a cut here for our tenon. I still have the tailstock in place, so I'll go left-handed over here. And I'm going to go with a 2 3/8 inch tenon. So I want to go ahead and set my calipers now for that setup. And it's in there. Okay. So I'll set it over here on this. Because knowing me, my tape measure is out at the warehouse from building the crate. Knowing me, story of my life. No matter how many tools I have, I never have them right where I'm at. Craziness, I know. Craziness, I know. Yep, that should do the trick. Right there. Okay. All right. And actually, it looks like I can almost use the screw holes as my reference. So you see there, you can't quite see, the calipers are set right to the screw holes. So that should do the trick. If I mess it up, I can always make it smaller. So I'm going to get a bead on where those screw holes are here. And I'm going to do that with a little pointy tool. So there's my reference for where my screw holes are. Okay, and before I totally commit to that, since I'm just not 100% up, I am going to run next door one more time where that tape measure actually is and pick it up, because I don't really want to have to do this twice. So many projects go on in one weekend around here. And when you've got 2 workshops and 3 warehouses, you end up with stuff all over the place. And I'm right where I want to be, so I'm safe. I just wanted to double check that to be sure that I was on the money. And let's see, you probably can't see. It's not zoomed in enough. I have cut halfway through the screw holes. So I know I won't have my screw holes in my tenon or in my piece. My tenon can be just a little bit longer. Then I will take a detail tool and put my 10-degree bevel on it. We are there you can see. Okay, so now my tenon is complete. I know where the bottom of my piece is, right here. So now I can connect the dots between the top and the bottom, right there, okay? That's the big key, is knowing where the bottom and the top are for your shape. Okay, and we sneak this in here a little bit closer. Drop this down. Corey, I got at least 8 tape measures. Do you think how many caulk guns do you have, Corey? I know I got at least a dozen of those too. But you can never find them when you're supposed to have them. Double check that. Okay. So I'm going to come back in here, take some of this material away. Okay. I got a feeling something. There we go. All right. Onward we go. And again, we're going to sneak up on our top. So when I get up here where it's a lot of air again, I don't let the bevel ride. I let it just kind of float along. Okay? Otherwise I'll get a lot of bouncing off the bevel as it's going by. Alright. So I still have a lot of material here. And I'm just going to keep on carving this one. It's going to be very lopsided, but that's okay with me. All right. This is the part where when you're up in here and you're not cutting any material here at all, this is all air, you have to think in your mind that the piece is still round. So if you envision round, you'll be just fine. Even though as the tool comes by, as the wood comes by the tool, let me see where am I at here, which camera I'm on the end. As it comes by here, it's cutting nothing. There's nothing there, and then the tool cuts, and then it's air, and then it cuts, and then it's air. Okay? So in your mind, think it's round, and there's wood there. So, let's see here. Let me think about this. How am I doing to get close to that? I'm going to change this profile so that I can get all the way up to this tip. Alright? So here we go. And I really need to take tailstock away, but I don't want to. So essentially what I'm doing is shortening the bowl up, and actually sometimes these are fun to do. This kind of a curve is fun to do with a carbide tool, especially because I have the tailstock in my way here. And let me give you an overhead, show you what's going on. So Art says he has 8 or so tape rulers with the reach of the lathe and I can rarely find them. I don't feel so bad. Alright, so I've gone to a Easy Wood mid-size tool here for this cut. Now it's not going to cut quite as crisp. I'll come back and clean it up. Because remember, this is going to be turned thin. So it'll be its finished shape. So we do want as clean a cut as we can get. But these round cutters allow me to make my curves without getting in the way of the tailstock. Probably going to be one funny looking bowl, but I don't care. It's all in fun. So we've topped out on this end, but we haven't topped out on this end yet. Alright. And there's nothing to say that we can't come back here after we make this shape and cut some more of this away. If we don't like all this section down in here, we can just take it away. If we like it, we can leave it. It's totally up to you, to us, or to you as the turner. Again, there's the pith running through this piece. One could argue that you should take that out. Okay. Let me take another look. I look up here at the top. I got to figure this out. All right. So I'm going to get this cut up to the top. So I know where that, I got to find that top. So I'm just going to keep taking some of this away. Okay, we're real close. We're getting real close there. Now, I love the grain in this piece. It's really cool. Really cool. This is, again, I say this all the time. I know I sound like a broken record. This is some of my favorite kind of turning. I guess I don't get out here and turn much that I don't like to. Because what's the point in turning if you're not enjoying yourself? And as long as what I'm doing... and I'm enjoying myself, and those of you who are watching with me today, which I greatly appreciate, are learning something, picking up a tip, a technique, well then it's all good for everybody. All right? That's the way I look at it. Now, I don't want to take any more than I have to get to this top corner. And I'm super, super close now. Okay. So that's just a teeny, teeny, teeny bit of flat. Right there. Now, we've made that tenon once. Now, do we want to leave this tall like this and have that be our bottom? It's pretty tall. Like I say, we could change this. We could cut this all the way back, but then we would lose all this pretty grain and this color down in here. So part of me is inclined to refine this curve and leave this, because this is some of the, and yes, the pith is right there, and I could, like I say, it's a little bit higher on this side. It doesn't run right in the middle of it. It's an organic piece, so if it splits around that pith, I may not worry about it. Okay? Now, what I wish is that I was 100% comfortable about taking this tailstock away so that I could come in here with my bowl gouge and clean up this cut and really refine this shape. So what I think I'm going to do is a little bit more with the carbide tool. So my dad votes for leave it tall. I'm going to do a little more work with the carbide tool, and then I'm going to come in here with and I can take some of this away. I'll come back with the bowl gouge. And clean and really refine it. Okay, it's asymmetrical, which I love. I used to build asymmetrical boats, inflatable boats, and I just thought they were the coolest thing in the world. All right, let's see what happens here when we take the tailstock away. We'll see if this stays well mounted or not, and that I don't get hurt. So now I can come in with my bowl gouge and cut downhill, not lifting up the grain, cut this real nice and clean for my final finish cuts. Okay. Now, again, we're cutting wood here, and we're in the overhead. Let me go to the end. We're cutting wood, and then as it comes around, we're cutting nothing. This is air, and then we come back to wood, and it wants to make the tool bounce. On top of that, we have hardwood, and then we have this wood that started to decay here, this kind of punky stuff. So we have different densities of wood, as well as wood and air and wood and air. So there's a lot going on with your wood and how it's reacting to the tool, or how the tool is reacting to the wood, I should say. I'm not sure if this is the choice I want to make on the tool or not, but it's the one I'm going to make. And I may change my mind on this. Thousands, just a little. I wanted the most speed for the cleanest cut. But over 1,000, it started to bounce pretty good. So right now I'm still on all solid wood, and I'm getting a great, nice, clean cut. As I get up here where the air is, it will be a little tougher. And this is where I'm not going to actually let the bevel rub or ride. It's going to float right off the bevel just on cutting with the tip. Okay. And that's a real nice cut down through there. I got a little bit of a hump right here when I made this transition. This is stellar right in through here. I mean, that's ready to sand with 220. I'm quite impressed with that. But I got a little hump, and I don't know if you can see it in the overhead. Probably not. So I'm going to clean this hump up. I'm going to change this, raise this tool rest up just a fuzz here real quick. Then we get to go inside this guy. I just want to clean up this transition right in here. And now I'm looking over here. I'll point with my finger over here against the black of my cabinet. Okay. Very fine, light cut. Because again, we're going to turn this piece thin. I'm dropping the handle down. Gets more of a shearing cut almost. Although I've got this tool rest is not the it's not the greatest the way this flare is in it. Then we get up into the bounces there. Okay, so that's all pretty cool. This is the hardest part up here in the top, where it bounces so much in that area right in there. 1142. And what I'm looking at is just a ghost image, which makes it even harder to see your cut. So just a very light cut. Try and watch that cut line through the ghost image. Until we top out. Okay. I am happy with that. So let's get rid of this excess wood down here on the end. Could have done it 100 different ways. I just decided to grab a little 1/4-inch gouge. Okay. So we're undercut for our tenon. Our tenon looks good. Our base is good. It looks flat. We've got a fun little shape here. It got closer to round than I anticipated, but it's not round. That's all cool. Let me take a sip before I change camera through. All right. Now the fun really starts. Taking out the inside. I don't know if you've noticed, if you haven't been seeing me much, you've just been seeing the tools. I'm having a ball. I'm having fun. I'm really having fun. And that's really what's important. If I can unscrew this thing, which is always one of the scary parts. When you use a worm screw, if you get it on there too tight, then you're going to play hell getting it back off of there. So, again, I had one plan when I started on how I was going to mount this guy up. It didn't work for reasons of my cover here. And it's just getting loose again. But figured out a way to deal with it, which is, that's part of the challenge and part of the fun, if you ask me, is dealing with unforeseens as we turn. Can I show removal of the tenon? Sure, I can take the tenon off. Once I get the inside out of it, Art, we'll turn it back around and take the tenon off. Okay, it's real simple. Don't need anything fancy. All right. So this looks cool. I like this. My tenon's maybe a little larger than I wanted for a perfect tenon, but I'm not going to beat myself up on it today since I was dealing with other goodies. Interesting piece of wood. Again, when you look here in the overhead, I don't know, I'm kind of far away. Maybe let me zoom this in so you guys can see a little bit better. Some of this grain and all. So there's pith right there. That's probably going to crack. I'm going to let it crack. If it cracks, it cracks. I've got some new fillers I've been testing, and we'll fill it in and make it look all nice. And the reason the reason I say I don't mind taking the tenon off of here is I can actually make myself another tenon right here really quick if I wanted to in the future to hold this piece or do whatever I wanted to with. But really nice grain patterns going through here. All right. So now let's go to the end inside. And this is where we're going to take the middle out of this guy. Now it's wonky, it's crooked, it's all kinds of fun things. And I want to turn it thin. When I say thin, maybe 1/4 inch, something like that. I don't want to leave it thick. So it's going to be a fragile piece. It's kind of fun to test yourself on the how making pieces real fragile. When it's green like this, it's easier to get away with it. See, and I can't angle my tool rest because one end is higher than the other. So, a few challenges right here, but that's okay. All right. How close can I get? I want to get in here as close as I can for the moment. I'm going to take one more quick sip. And we're headed inside. Now this guy is actually fairly deep. I didn't even think about how deep is it? Well, it top to bottom is 6 inches deep from the base to the bark. And only about 8 inches across. So it will present its own challenges in that regard. It's out of balance as all get out. So we have to take her down to around, about 925. Now once I take mass out of here, once I start to get the mass out, this will calm down. And see, you are looking at the end camera. So I'm going to change it over for a second. Now I want a little bit better view of what's going on in here. as the work proceeds, and I will try and keep myself out of the way. Let's see if that stays in focus when it turns. Put my fingers up there without getting hit. A little bit of adjustment here. You know, you guys know me, I'm always after getting you the best view. Yeah. Which usually causes trouble by the time I get done adjusting the cameras. So if my finger stays in focus in here and that stays in focus, I think we're good. Okay. It looks okay out front. Of course, I'm wearing a mask. I'm gonna change that real quick. Change the focus setting. Hang with me. See if we can't get that dialed in a little bit more. All right, I think that's pretty good. I hope. I hate it when they're out of focus, when they spin, when I watch them after the fact. Okay. So in we go. Choice of tool could be any of them. Can be the bowl gouges, can be the carbide tools. I'm going to go with my little carbide number 1 hollower because it's going to take the lightest cut at first. And I'm just going to come right along here. Now I'm going to work my way down in stages, about 1 inch or 2 at a time. So you can see what we've got going on here. You can see how I just already roughed right down to here. Now this is that tall, and we're barely even cutting into here. Okay, this bark isn't going to stay, so let's just peel that out of the way. We will have a natural edge. The bark's not going to stay on it. Some wonderful patterns. Of course, it's always, you feel like it's a shame to cut some of this pattern away. And the other thing is that this is not sitting, and it may be because my tendon, I'm going to double check this before I go any further. It's not sitting completely true, and I don't really want to retrue the outside of this. It's not turning completely true in the chuck, so my wall won't be thick or even. That's better. It's not perfect, but that's better. It might be because of the screw holes. I actually had the very edge of the screw holes still kind of sitting there. Okay, let me get this tailstock out of the way of my foot. Again, I'm going to work my way down, like say 1 inch or 2. One thing to be very careful of, as you start going inside a piece like this, you've got this one little corner right here. And I know you can just barely see my tool rest in my hand. So you've got your hand laying up here. And if you let your hand slide over because you're looking down inside, this piece is going to come by and it's going to whap you right there on the fleshy end of your hand, and it's going to hurt like the dickens, and you're going to be wishing you hadn't done that. Okay? Been there, don't want to do it anymore. So I am turning my tool rest inside, closer to the inside of the piece now, so I'm not hanging over quite as far. I'm going to take a little bit of this middle out just to get some mass, and it looks like I need to go up. Because if I can get some more mass out of here, I can get the speed up, and I can turn this cleaner. All right. There we go. So let's take a little bit of this mass out, but I don't want to take too much out and have it start to move on me. And I can do this with a bowl gouge as well. If that's what, it depends on what you got. Doesn't really matter. The biggest thing with changing between conventional tools and carbide tools is typically you have to move the tool rest up and down. But sometimes you can fudge it a little bit. So that worm screw went down in there pretty far, didn't it? Let's see just how far it went. So there's where the worm screw went to. Now we're going to see some pretty wood. Take a picture of that because you won't see it again once it gets turned away. All right. Okay, now I do want to go back to my round tool. Well, actually, I'm pretty happy now. I know I'm going to stay with the round tool a little bit longer. But what I'm hoping here, now that I've taken some of that mass out, so that we bumped her up to about 1200, and we'll get a little bit cleaner cut up here. Looking like it's out of, well, the vibration is what's making you out of balance there. It's shaking the shop and the camera there, I saw. I apologize for that. I'll slow her down there. So depending on the piece, a lot of times what I like to do is get my wings cut from the top, the highest point of the wing, down to the lowest point. And then finish cutting that wing. All right, so that's going to be kind of long on this side, but I might go ahead and do it. Then I don't have to come back to those wings again. All right, and just for fun, let's change tools here. Let's go back to our bowl gouge. I'm going to drop the tool rest down just a fuzz. Move my controller over here. Make sure everything's clear, because now if you don't check it when you turn it, you'll break it. Okay? So that's air and wood. This tool's starting to get a little dull. So, and I'm pretty close to where I want to be. I'm going to switch to the smaller bowl gouge. And I'll start to make a little bit lighter pass down through here. Okay, let's see how we're doing on our wall there. Okay, so we're pretty good. We got funky spot right here. I don't know what that is. You can feel it in the tool. That I'm almost down to the very bottom edge here, the lowest point. I've achieved that here in this wall. So you can see right here, I'm almost down to there in that spot. Because of that funky spot, I'm going to jump back to a carbide tool real quick just because it's going to be easier on me for a second. just right in through here. Just take this away. So I'm just using that to kind of hog some of the wood out of there. All right, so I'm essentially down to that bottom point now. I'm going to switch over to one of my favorite little tools, which is a little 1/4-inch bowl gouge with a real short bevel. You hear them called bottom feeders these days in a bigger tool. This is a little 1/4-inch, and it's got the heel ground away as well. So it's almost a very traditional grind. You can't quite see it, but it's pretty much you cut like a Sorby factory grind, almost traditional style grind, and that's what I'm going to use to come down the wall here. And I'm going to move my tool rest over a little bit closer in here, and this is what I'll use to make my final cut. Now I may get a shoulder in the way here, I'm not sure. This is where I wish I could get as much speed as I could possibly get, but I know it's shaking things there. But I'll get a nice clean cut. It's a little scary up there about 1400, but the piece looks clear. Shaking the whole shop, but we won't stay up here long. And I'll watch the cut line down the opposite side over here. Okay, and if I'm lucky, that made my finish cut for my upper wing. All right. So I got to right there. It's deceiving because you're 3 inches away here and you're only 1.5 inches away there. So that's a little deceiving. I think I'll make one more pass down through there, and this is probably starting to flex a little bit. That's why I'm using this real light tool. Okay. I think I'll make one more pass down through there. I'm trying to find a speed where it stops shaking the camera there. If it breaks the wing, it's going to be ugly, but it'll hopefully just go somewhere else. It's about 1400. Make sure I'm not in the way. Pick up the cut here at the very top. It's a little thick right in here, so I'm taking a little heavier cut right there. Okay, now that should pretty much take me down my wing, and it does. Okay, and real close to right there, right to the bottom of that all. So there's a line right here where this happens, and I could chase that. I may try and I'll try and chase it one time, but I don't want to go too much thinner. Let me remember where that line is at. It is right. It's about 1 inch in, but see, you can't see your top here. So off we go. See if I can't find that. And then that top wing will be done. So it's about 1 inch down in here. Because of the air, I can't, and the bounce, I can't quite feel it, so I'm hoping we took it out. And we did. Okay, so that smoothed up. It took care of that little hump right there that was aggravating me. All right, so now we're safe. We won't come back up here on these wings at all. They're done. We're going to drop down inside here and take more of the middle out. Now this is nice and thin. It's the thickness that I wanted. I don't know what it is. We'll stick a caliper on here. And whatever that is. If you have to know, if it's important to you. That is 5/16, if it matters. Okay, so that's plenty thin enough for me. I'm happy with that. Now I'm going to go back and just remove wood out of the middle. Again, it's going to be easier with this hollowing style tool or the straight round cutter to get down in here. Speed will be down again. I'm going to obviously go over time a little bit, but that's nothing new. We'll hold it right about 1,000. We'll just mow some of this wood out of here. Tool rest is just a fuzz low. Stop, raise it up. So what I'll do is I'm going to drill myself about 1 inch down in there. This comes out quickly. And then I'll go ahead and just take this away, and I might even use the bigger cutter here. One of the reasons I'm using the carbide is it doesn't get dull real fast, and so I'm saving my high-speed steel tools from having to go and sharpen. I can just use these as a workhorse. And then come back with a real sharp Carter & Son tool and make that final cut. Not that this is a bad cut, don't get me wrong. It's cutting just fine. Okay, take a look at what we got going on in there. And it's probably kind of getting harder for you to see down inside there as we get deeper. But I have a little lip right here. I left a little ledge with that tool from where I stopped before. All right. And I've got about 2 inches of wood there. So I am going to actually do this to make it where you can see a little bit better and I don't drop my shoulder in the way. I can rotate this headstock real quick. And I'll have to adjust that camera just a little bit. But this will let me kind of lean over in here and work and allow you to see as well. Okay. That worked for you? That should do the trick. All right. So I'm about 3/8 in thick right now. I'll take my smaller, but not the small bowl gouge. What Carter & Son refers to as their 1/2 inch. Drop my tool rest down a little bit more. And this is always good practice with the bowl gouge, coming down inside somewhere. Now this is not ground as a bottom feeder style either, so that's why I will switch again. Trying to find that little lip. That's is there a split here? There's a split right there. Okay, that's what's giving me a little, there's a little knot and a split right in there. So I am going to switch back to my carbide. It's a little safer on this until I grab my small tool. All right, let's see how we're doing. Okay, good. Now, to my little guy. Clean this up. Nice light cut. Dial up my speed. Come find the lip, where the little ledge is. It's right there. So I'm reaching pretty far over with that little 1/4 inch tool, but I get a great cut right there. I need one more pass right from the transition. I'm going to turn this tool rest at a little bit more of an angle to try and get closer to this wall. Right in through here. Okay. Good deal. Wish I could get a little bit closer. There we go. Okay. I think you can still see down in there pretty well. This is cutting really well. Got just a slight rise right here at the transition, and then another couple of rises down low. Come in here, pick up the cut. Looking at the opposite side. Watching the cut line come down. Okay, and right down to my bottom. All right, now I have a nice smooth wall down through here. Pretty uniform thickness. I know I hate to be the perfectionist and run so long, but I'm going to take one more pass down through there. It's not quite, it's still a little thick, extra thick down here. We'll just take a little bit more off. Maybe I'll start practicing for making hats. Okay. Good deal. We'll just peel that. Well, we'll leave it on there and let it do what it wants to do. All right, so we have about 2 inches left to go down inside, give or take. We're going to reach down in here with our carbide tool again, our hollower. Let me stop and raise that up. And I'll go ahead and take this down to the depth that I'm going to for the bottom. And you can see, and you can't quite see the tool anymore, but you get the idea. Now I'm going to leave a little extra in the bottom just in case I decide to put a tenon back on here and do some extra sanding, or if I stabilize this piece. This #1 hollower from Easy Wood Tools, it's a great tool for reaching, 3 inches over the tool rest, but will still have a nice light cut. Starts to push it in there a little bit. Okay. Like I said, I'm going to leave a little extra in the bottom of this, just so I have something to work with if I change my mind on it a little bit later. I love the colors in this thing. It's beautiful inside. And when I take it off of here, I'll show you the pattern inside. I mean, so this was definitely worth the stop on the side of the street to pick this piece of wood up, because it's so pretty. Again, I'll switch back to my little tool, my little 1/4-inch tool, and I'm just going to finish out this section right in here. Drop that down just a fuzz. This little tool cuts so well. And like I say, you notice I just use it for a few cuts, so I don't have to resharpen it a lot. And I can sweep around into the bottom here. So I see a line here. I'm going to check and see if it's a ridge or if it's, what do we got? So I've got a little bit of transition ridge right here. Okay, so that's right up about there. All right. That tells me that's where I need to start. Take this transition out right in here. So I pick up a cut, a little bit more. There we go. Right across to the bottom there almost. That's got my walls all the way down. All right, just a little cleanup in the bottom here. And we're going to call this good. So this will be the tricky part. Try not to get my hand hit with anything at all. Kind of clean that up with like a scrape coming up. See how we do. If we've got that ridge out of there, we're all good. Don't stick your hand in there till it's done moving. All right, just a little bit of ridge right there. I'm happy with the wall thickness. It's staying uniform. It's not a hat, but it's not too far away. Jerry Meesmeyer is supposed to be around here this fall. He's going to come by and visit. I'm going to get him to teach me how to make a hat. I don't know if you're out there, Jerry, but I just volunteered your services to teach me to make hats. Okay. I'm going to leave it right there. Especially because of time, because I've gone over. It's a little afternoon. Cool beans. I've been having a ball. And like I say, I'm a little sweaty, but not bad. It's not super hot. This piece will be dry in about 3 days, because it's nice and thin. So here is what we have on the inside. This is a gorgeous piece of wood. This came off the curb of the street. All right. All you had to do is pull in the driveway and not ask any questions. I should officially say you should always ask the property owner if you can steal their wood that they've thrown away. Beautiful piece of wood. That almost looks like it's going backwards, doesn't it? Like it's coming up towards you. Here's our outside. You can see we're slinging moisture through. There's a little bit of a bark split right in here or something to that effect. It's a gorgeous piece of wood. Really, really nice. Got a nice profile to it. If I turn it this way, you can see how much curve there is in it. I love these goofy, funky shapes. I have a ball making these. I made 1 million of them, and I never get tired of it. All right, so if I go up here and I hold it in front of me against my jacket, you can see how this is the tall side, this is the low side. I think that's right. I'm looking in reverse. Anyway, it's really nice. Got a fun little shape to it. Okay, so now Art wants to see how to take the tenon off. Not a problem. With what I got going on today, if I have a chunk of wood around, I would put a chunk of wood in it and just make a little reverse chuck. Not even a jam chuck, just a little reverse chuck. If not, sometimes I use a rubber chucky. If the jaws hold it, I think sometimes it holds this one. Can't remember. Okay, so little rubber chucky on there, flat nose urethane cone. Now, I did mess up in that I didn't put a center dot on this, but I bet you I can find one that's close enough. Okay. And let me fix this end camera over here. Pardon my adjusting. Bring my tailstock back around. All we need is friction. Oh, and that doggone thing is gonna haunt me today. That tall end, because it's gonna hit that motor. I know. I need a Nova, right, Rich? Let's see. I'll use anything to do what I need to do. Let's see if we can get this in here without changing the jaws. I'm just going to push this. I just want to push this out. Got to also remember to turn my speed way all the way back down to 0. Thing should be strong enough. I don't have my little rubber mat around right now. Usually I'll put a pot grip, or I've got like a rubber mat or a cotton pot grip right here. Rich says Nova's always the answer. I figured I'd get something out of him with that. Now normally I would have put a little divot, right? I'd put a little dimple if I had thought about it. I would have put a little dimple right in the very center of the end of the tenon so that I could center this up. So I'm going to have to eyeball this. And normally I would turn a piece of wood that matches that curve inside there. We'll see if we can get this to do what we want it to do today or not. This top may not be flat, and that's really thin. What else can I steal here real quick around the shop? Because you need surface area. That one's, I usually, in the other place, I would normally have a piece of wood hanging around that I can shape. I usually grab something. Let's try this one real quick, see if it'll reach. I'm getting a weird bump off the top of this, so let's try something else. All we're doing is making it stand off and putting pressure between the two, just the friction. That's not going to hold it away far enough. It's one of those days I take the cover back off of this silly thing. That's what I'm going to do. See if that gives me the clearance I need. All right. Whatever it takes. Let's see if that gets us the clearance we need. Maybe. And it doesn't have to be perfect. If you don't get it perfect, you would, of course, like it perfect. And you're going to hear some squeaking right there. And that's the wood trying to spin in the friction. That's pretty far off. So that's why, if you know you're going to do this, you put a little mark right there. That's why you put the mat in there, the rubber mat in there. Let me get a paper towel, which will help take some of that squeak out. Because I'm just up on this little edge. There's not much surface area. Do-do-do-do. And then once you start poking it with the live center, you end up with a bunch of holes in it. There we go. I think we can live with that. So that's not too bad. If I put you in the overhead, you see it's running out just a little bit, but we're not going to turn out here, so that doesn't matter. Okay. And we can zoom this one in. And what we're going to do is just turn this away to a little cone. Okay. Now what we want is just enough friction here that the tool won't let it spin. That's where the rubber mat comes in. It gives you more grip. I learned this from Jimmy Clues when I first started turning. Okay. And if we can turn 500 or so, yeah, we're good. So the fact that this is, running out of just a little teeny bit, that's really not a big deal. We'll turn this down to a cone. Now, this means I'm going to have to find my chisel art, which I don't have any idea where my chisel is right now. And raise that tool rest up. I can use the bowl gouges. I can use the carbide. Where's my little bowl gouge? What you want is the least amount of resistance from the tool. Now, if it spins inside, you hear it squeaking. If it spins inside, it'll burn a mark in there. So I usually use a rubber mat, and it doesn't make as much noise. And then we'll just cut this down to a cone. You might not be able to hear me over noise, so I'll use the little detail tool and I'll cut this down to a cone. So you want to make sure that it's undercut, just slightly concave, so it sits flat. A piece like this, nobody's going to know if it's sitting crooked by a 32nd of an inch. Nobody's going to know that, whether or not it is or not, as long as it's flat. And if it's concave, it'll always sit. Even when it warps, it'll sit on 3 points. So that's all you really have to worry about. And so I usually, that's so noisy. I usually go down to about a pencil width here, and you can't quite see it in the overhead. So depending on how strong the wood is how big your ego is how small you cut this. And then we're just going to cut it off with that chisel that I'll be looking for here in a minute. So I'm going to take one more cut, and I'm actually going to use a negative rake, just because it's got a point. It's got the CI7. The Easy Wood tools, it's a little bit pointier tip on it. Because you can do this with a razor knife too. Now the scary part of doing this is you just spent an hour and a half making this piece. And if you go too far right there, the piece flies all over the place. And then you break everything. So that comes back out of there. And all we have is that little teeny tip. And let me go to the overhead here. You've got this little teeny cone. This real small little cone right there. That's all there is left on the bottom. Okay. And normally when you can find your chisel, and you don't want to snap it off, take your chisel. In today's case, I might just try and use a razor knife here and see if I can cut through this, because this wood's pretty soft. Going with the grain. Oh, wrong camera. So I've just got a razor knife, blade extended all the way out. And I'm just cutting through, with the grain through the bottom of this piece, through that little piece that I made there. Chisel's better, but like I said, I don't want to spend the time hunting for it because I don't know where it is. I think it's over in the drawer, but you know me. I'll just come in from the other direction now. Yeah, if you try and use any kind of a saw or anything, you'll mar up your piece. So now it pops away, and all you got to do is sand that little button off of there. It's that little teeny nub. You just sand that little nub away. And I'll show you here as well. that little nub, you sand that guy away, and you're all done. And that's how you get rid of the tenon without anything fancy, no vacuum chucks, no jam chucks, nothing crazy, no extra pieces and parts. Just a piece of wood, preferably a mat in here or something like that. And optimally, if I hadn't been in a hurry, I would turn the piece to make it match the inside of this curve and get as much surface area as I could. So that was fun. I hope you guys had fun. That's a great little piece. Again, like I say, this will dry in a week. You know, it's whatever it was I said, 5/16 thick. So it's ready to dry. It shouldn't crack because it's thin enough. It may crack right there at the pith. But other than that, it's a fun, cool little piece made out of a piece of roadside wood. Didn't cost us anything. You know, this bark is going to pop off of here. You can leave it there. You can do whatever you want to with it. Thank you, Art. Thank you, Lan. Thank you, Dad. Everybody, I had a great time. I know, what time is it? It's 12:30. Hey, when I'm into something, if I'm going, you know, I got no time limit here. I don't have anywhere I got to be today other than the Mexican restaurant for lunch on Mondays. That's my tradition now. Thank you, Mary Alice. I appreciate it very much. I have fun, and that's the most important part. Now, you don't always have fun, and those are the days if you're not having fun, if it's not working, walk away. Go cut the grass. Go take a nap. Go do something else. Go fishing, whatever it is. Your wood turning and everything you do regarding it, around it, should be fun, should be enjoyable. Remember, the person you're trying to please is yourself. That, to me, that's my rule. You may roll different than that. Make yourself happy. Enjoy what you're doing, and you'll do it for years and years and years. And there's always something new to do that you haven't done before. So thank you, everybody. I'm going to wrap this up. I did interject this I interceded this because I had this green wood all of a sudden. Next week, I will get out the big 30, well, it was 30, now it's 20 something inch piece with the resin back, the ingrained sycamore. And we're going to finish that up. That'll be next week's project. And then I have to get ready for, and there may be a different backdrop in here. Spirocraft will be a live virtual vendor at the Woodturners Worldwide Symposium, so we'll be online the 24th, 5th, 6th, whatever it is of September. I'll be right here with the tools and all on sale. So if you're interested in that, come check it out. Everybody have a great week. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I will see y'all in a week. And I'll pop fun things on the internet during the week. Y'all, bye now.